Welcome to this Oxentia podcast with Senior Consultant and Head of Entrepreneurship, Fabio Bianchi, and Development Director Tim Hart, who will be discussing accelerators.
Fabio, I've been thinking about accelerators, right? I mean, there's a lot of them. In fact, there's over 1,300 across the world. And they pop up everywhere, and we've seen this, and they continue to pop up, even in our own city. They appear where they didn't before. And I thought we could take the opportunity to think about what's their role in the grander scheme of supporting entrepreneurs and startups. Are they here to stay? What's their function? Are they going to evolve? How useful are they? Is it time to review? And consider more refined or alternative interventions for startups and entrepreneurs. And I'll start with one fact that an observation that's been made in that, according to a recent Wall Street Journal article, 45% of startup accelerators have yet to produce a single entrepreneur who successfully raised venture funding after the process. I guess the question to start with is are they the most effective intervention that we can develop?
I think so. I think we've become too focused on accelerators becoming some sort of beauty competition for aspiring entrepreneurs who can raise the most venture capital, who can shout the loudest on their marketing platforms because they're part of Y Combinator or some sort of high quality accelerator. What I think we've lost is helping individual entrepreneurs one-on-one with the fundamentals, with market validation, with product market fit, with communicating what problem they're actually solving. And it's going back to those basics where I think accelerators should be moving away from the sort of glitzy competition-like thing and becoming more about really helping on those fundamentals. Because and you and I have seen this so many times where there's so many early-stage entrepreneurs who are taken in by this whole idea of raising capital even before they actually done anything, and that's their main focus. And they're so technology-driven that they lose track of what the market actually wants. And so if accelerators can actually go back to helping entrepreneurs develop the fundamentals of especially technology-based and early-stage businesses, which again is actually showing that you're solving a real-life problem and showing that there are people willing to pay for your solution, then I think they may go towards again being useful for that ecosystem building aspect.
We've uncovered quite an interesting issue here, which is that there is perhaps more value in accelerators in supporting ecosystem development and perhaps keeping them local, right? I mean, we've all lived through the world where we've had to work more remotely. We've seen the emergence of international accelerator programs. We have pursued those interests too. But is there a more productive, effective structure of accelerators where we keep them purely local? We've spoke before about the value of training versus the value of that concept of pacers, where you have local people who support the development of multiple entrepreneurial experiences, and maybe there is more value in developing more locally based accelerators, because they're far easier, aren't they, for entrepreneurs to interact with, for mentors to support, where they're physically close to each other.
Yes, I think so. I think that works if you have a good enough infrastructure within your ecosystem, right? You need to have the mentoring capacity. You need to have access to that market validation. So you need to be in a place where you can actually go out and do that. You need to have access to capital, because in the end, capital, although it may not be, I'm not advocating for it to be the main focus of accelerators, it's an important element of it still. So yes, you're right, but the risk of that is that it becomes a bit elitist in terms of ecosystems. That works in a developed ecosystem. It works here in Oxford, it works in San Francisco, it works in Mumbai, it works in places where there is concentration of resources. And maybe accelerators do have a role in attracting ideas that come out of smaller ecosystems or less developed ecosystems. And maybe that's the issue. Maybe is that today everyone is trying to set up an accelerator program. Any university, any local government, because there is public funding attached to it, because it's quite easy to do. And I think the value of that is limited if you don't have that strong, solid, resourceful ecosystem behind it.
Yeah. I mean, using accelerators to try and deliver impact both to the entrepreneurs and to the development of the ecosystem is it takes me back to what we always tend to go back to, which is this enormous complicated jigsaw, and it's just one piece of the jigsaw. And we're constantly trying to look at how we can bring other people's jigsaws to an ecosystem to try and support its development without having to go down decades, if not multiple decades, of investment and support to develop an ecosystem from scratch. We're trying to accelerate ecosystems with accelerators. Anyway, maybe you have an interesting observation about.
Well, I'll tell you a fact. I'll tell you two facts actually. One is that I don't know if you knew, but in the UK, the number of accelerator programs has increased since 2014 year on year by 78%. Do you think there is enough demand and that there is enough impact shown from these accelerators to justify that, or do you think there is some sort of accelerator bubble existing in the UK and possibly in the rest of the world? I don't know the statistics for the rest of the world.
I'd like to think there's an accelerator bubble. I get concerned when I think through our own accelerators, as if I'm within an ecosystem and if I look at it from an investor's perspective and I'm interested in finding opportunities to invest in, are they really going to be developed in a time frame I'm prepared to look at within an accelerator program? Or should I be looking, and can I expect them to come out of a cohort? Is the timing going to work for me?
Well, I'll give you another statistic on that. Did you know that companies attending accelerators on average raise 44% more money than startups who do not attend accelerator programs?
You see, that relates back to the inherent value of preparing opportunities for engagement with the investment community or engagement with the market. There's no doubt, since before accelerators existed, there has been value in that preparation and support.
And also, on average, startups that go through accelerator programs their valuations are 75% higher than startups that don't go through accelerator programs.
Now, is that a true reflection of the impact of accelerators on the developing the value proposition for the spin-outs, or is that just part of the hype of being an accelerator program where you're pulling together investors who compete for opportunities?
That's a good question.
And does that cause does that have some impact on valuation which can't be justified?
I think so. I agree. I definitely think that it kind of hyperinflates valuations, and we've seen that slowing down because of the recent general sort of recession and financial crisis. And I think actually for the early stage investment scene, it's probably a good thing that it's slowing down.
You raise a really important point, which is very topical, because this could be the direction of travel, which is some economic slowdown, right? And what's crucial, and what many governments, including our own, believe in, is that the way out of economic slowdown is to invest and support the development of high potential growth businesses, right? Like technology businesses. do accelerators have a real role in trying to keep together the activity within this sector, right? Because we know accelerators de-risk opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
We know they can be made more palatable, more investor friendly. Are they an important part of bringing investors and opportunities together so that they can be supported through times of economic slowdown?
Possibly, I'm not sure. And actually, this would be something really interesting to discuss with some of our partners and some of the people we work with and some of the people who are working on this. I mean, potentially we could open this conversation to some of our corporate partners as well as some of the investors we work with and maybe even government and see what they think about this, because I think it's an open question. I think the jury's out on whether this is the right way of dealing with sort of economic turmoil for early stage businesses. There's definitely, I think there is value in as you said, sort of sort of grouping together businesses under some sort of umbrella. But again, what we said earlier is also that maybe we kind of overshot the need a little bit, and now we're in some sort of stabilizing phase of the sector. So we'll see. But it will be interesting to hear from some other people who work in this area and see what they think.
Yeah, I mean, one thing's for sure, right, is that we are in a state of change within country, change between countries. Change is good. Change is good for entrepreneurs. We know that. It's good for the environment, but maybe that is a great role for accelerators in that they help us nurture and encourage change, which can be then developed into investable opportunities for our investment community. So maybe the more we think about this, maybe accelerators have a much wider role to play. They help support local development and they help manage and maintain growth in times of change.
I think so, and I think the offering of accelerators can be shaped to do that, to foster what you just said, right? I mean, if you look at this report, released by the Center for Entrepreneurs a couple of months ago, actually only there's a very small percentage of accelerators actually directly offer funding or equity investment. I think it's around 15-20% of UK-based accelerator programs actually directly offer that. Whereas something like 90-95% of them offer things like peer networking opportunities. I think that's also a bit of a mismatch and something which we will hopefully see a readjustment towards, because running accelerator programs as effectively de-risking programs, investment de-risking programs, and potentially venture building programs for investors, given the current situation and the current uncertainty we face, could be a really strong tool to build far more solid value propositions and far more solid investment opportunities. So maybe there will be a readjustment, and I know we've been talking to some investors around about this, and that there is initial signs of some appetite, but not yet sort of full conviction that venture capitalists should be venture building rather than trying to sort of source opportunities from various accelerators, and actually running your own accelerator program as a way of doing your due diligence and building ventures in the image of something you want to invest in is potentially the future direction of the sector.
I mean, that raises a very important point, because when we look at an investor and we look at their investment strategy, investors will be attracted to the most promising opportunities, and they may not always fit well with their investment strategy. Science parks have to fill space, and they may not always fill the space with the right companies that fit their strengths, their strategy, the regional focus. Can you use accelerators to help investors develop more competitive, productive portfolios? Can you use accelerators to help science parks develop more critical mass around a strategic theme or strength within the region? And so, the more we talk about this, the more we think that accelerators have roles way beyond simply supporting entrepreneurs to secure investment.
And I think that's the takeaway from this chat, is that more and more accelerators are part of that ecosystem building, and more they need to be directly organized and funded by those who then provide the capital for the development of those opportunities.
Yeah, it's a public-private sector effort.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed that Oxentia podcast, and for any more information about our work on accelerators, you can visit our website at oxentia.com.